All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's get her going here. Start me off. Where to bid to go? Have it like $1,000. Open it up.
Does paying property tax give ownership? So today's episode, that's what we're going to cover. Now, maybe you're an entrepreneur. Now, people are different. They have personal and professional motivations for becoming entrepreneurs. So if you're an entrepreneur and you're dreaming about creating wealth, or you want to be famous or whatever it is, maybe you just want to be recognized by the world. I don't know what you want, but we're going to talk about being entrepreneurs. It's one of the biggest reasons people do that is they just don't fit into the corporate mold or the corporate template. So they want to go out and they want to work for themselves. They want to do work that they want to do, and they want to do it when they want to do it. In other words, they don't want to work on someone else's time. All right, so that's okay with me. And a lot of people become entrepreneurs. But I'm going to tell you right now, a lot of entrepreneurs were working 40 hours a week. They stopped doing that. They stop working for the corporation. Now they go home to be an entrepreneur. They have to work 60 hours just to make the same amount of money. So if you're going to become an entrepreneur, understand that you're going to have to work hard, okay? So this business appeals to entrepreneurs. So if you like the idea of setting your own hours, which does not necessarily mean that you're going to work less hours, then you'll want to be an entrepreneur. Now what's going to happen is your work is going to depend upon how much you make. So you're going to have to work harder, probably as an entrepreneur, than you ever would working for a corporation. So the hours that you put in are going to determine what you get out of your business. So I'm telling you ahead of time, entrepreneur's life is hard. You must have put in a lot of long hours, but you control your own outcome. So let's kind of get into this. Now, today's episode is about, does paying property tax give ownership? If you've missed part one of this, you need to go back and see part one. Go ahead and go through this part two, but you need to go back and see part one. All right, the point is, a lot of people get discouraged at this point in time. All right, it seems confusing, but the laws are written the way they're written, and we have to follow them. So the guidance that you really need probably is going to come from a coach or a mentor. I always recommend people get a coach and have a mentor. Why? Because they accelerate your learning. But let's get you through this process so you can learn at least enough to be exposed to it here on a YouTube video. Now, I always say education is important. Why? Because it accelerates. It helps you get to where you want to go much quicker. All right, so when I started, I experienced a lot of struggles. But when I started to listen to other people and I accepted their guidance and they shared their answers with me, well, then I decided I was going to change a lot. And what I did is I started making notes. And when I made notes, then my business started accelerating. So for sure, when you get in business, it's intimidating. There's a lot of things that you have to learn in business, and you don't always know how to make the same decisions. So a coach would help, a guide would help, a mentor would help. My point is, you're going to have to talk to other business owners to know what's going on. Now, there's a lot of confusing information out there where people don't know what they're talking about. And that's why you want an experienced coach. And if you don't have one, you're probably missing the boat a little bit. All right, now everyone will give you advice. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, everyone wants to tell you about tax liens and tax deeds. So let me just slow the whole process down a little bit, because you're going to get advice from old people. You'll get advice from young people. You'll get advice from people that don't even like you. You're going to get all kinds of advice. Well, the problem is the advice isn't good. Why isn't it good? Because they haven't studied tax liens and deeds. And if they haven't, they don't have the expertise to pass on the real world, what's going on to you. So you need to think about that. That doesn't mean that you don't like the older people, the younger people, and people are giving you advice. It just means they don't know what they're talking about. So you need to find the right people to give you the guidance you want. So realizing that people can't help you in this business is probably number one for you. Why? Because you're going to have to learn it, and you better learn it right, because it's your money that's going to be spent. So today is episode number 2, okay, or part 2 of Does Paying Property Tax Give You Ownership? A lot of confusion in this area. A lot of people believe they can just pay the property tax on another person's property and end up owning the property. Well, that's yes, it could happen, but it's probably no, because it's going to be too confusing to make it happen. Let me see if I can clear up some of that issue as we go on. I don't want to burst your bubble, but lots of things are possible, and sometimes if it sounds too good, Well, it is too good. So here's the inside scoop from Ted. I'm going to just lay it out for you. Buyer beware. In life, if you don't know, you don't know. So many newcomers that are just getting started believe that they're going to just pay someone else's taxes and they're going to be able to take over the property. And that's not going to happen. All right. Now, a lot of people out there talking real loud, and you assume that they know what they're talking about because they talk with confidence and they speak with confidence, and you think, oh, this person really knows. Well, let me say that. A lot of people don't know what they're talking about, but they talk anyway. So let's see if we can clear up some of this. Does paying property tax give you ownership? The United States has 3,000 plus counties. Now, each county is a separate taxing district, a separate jurisdiction. That means the law is separate to that county. So every county can have their own rules. Now, the counties enforce the laws that come down from the legislature. In other words, the state legislature makes the rules, then they push it down to the counties. Then the county supervisors or the board of commissioners, they have to enforce all of those laws. Now, if you don't understand the laws, you'll have to understand them a little bit to understand what we're talking about today. But all the laws are enforced by the local county, and you'll have to follow them. There's a perception that anyone can pay someone else's taxes and they can take over the property. I can assure you that can happen. However, it's a long and cumbersome process. So please don't start making tax payments for other people because you could be wasting your money. If you haven't had the opportunity to watch lesson number 1 on does paying property tax give you ownership, if you haven't watched that, I'll put a link below so that you can go back and watch lesson 1. I'll mention this again at the end of the video. The law in each state, in each county is unique. So it's up to the buyer to understand the laws and what can be done and what can't be done. Okay, now private property is owned and has very explicit rights that those private owners must follow. The Board of Supervisors and the county commissioners in that county are allowed to collect property tax. They're authorized to do that by the state legislature. The official treasurer, if you don't pay your taxes, will put the property in default after sending many notices of default. All right, they'll send those notices, and then they're going to confiscate the property. The question arises, what about someone who just wants to pay property tax and get a property? Now, my response is as follows. Number 1, follow the rules. Number 2, if you're going to take possession of a property, that's going to require a number of things, and they're all covered under the rules of adverse possession. So remember adverse possession. I'm in the business of tax lien and tax deeds. Now we've suddenly switched to adverse possession. These properties are not tax defaulted properties. They're properties people are trying to take by adverse possession. So I'll start by saying, read the statute books. Okay, now here's a few things you need to possess that property. Now I'm just going to give you a short list. When you go to the statutes, there's going to be a much longer list. Step number 1. This list includes a number of things. Number 1 is you're going to have to hold the property in a hostile manner. Now, you probably haven't heard those words before, but stay with me on this so you get it. What does that mean? It means that you hold the property in a conflicting, antagonistic, opposed act of goodwill. In other words, you're not supposed to be there. Okay, let's continue. That means that the world can see you holding this property as an act of ill will. I'm taking this right out of the dictionary when you look up hostile, okay? Now, some states, you might have to hold that property for 5 years. Other years, it might be 7 years. I don't know how many it will be. It's going to depend upon the state law, but it means that you're either living in it or you're controlling that property during this whole period of time. And, listen close, you're paying the property taxes. If the owner pays the property tax in any 1 year, you would have to start all over again because you're going to have to pay the taxes consecutively for 5 years while you're holding this property. The money that you pay in those taxes will not be returned to you. I can assure you, if the owner comes back to the property, if they've abandoned it or whatever. If you're holding the property in a hostile situation, okay, you're putting up fences, you're living there, whatever it is, okay, all that has to be happening. You have to do that and you have to pay the taxes. This one requirement of the law that you hold the property openly in an unfriendly, hostile, antagonistic manner, this is enough to discourage most people. However, the rules are the rules. So if you possess a property and you're living in it, your chances are probably improved. I'm not suggesting that you attempt to do this. I am not suggesting you do anything that you've watched in any of this video. I am suggesting that you hire an attorney and have a long, detailed discussion with them so that it can explain in detail what the law is. I'm not an attorney. I can't explain that to you. All right, but I'm going to give you a suggestion in a minute that will solve these problems. Here's a much easier solution. Throughout these videos, I include many examples of previous experiences so that you can see how I've been able to help other people. Now, in a local county, in a small populated county just north of Tampa, Florida, one of my student investors purchased a property for $9,100 at a tax defaulted auction. Now, the property was used and abused. As a matter of fact, it was completely overgrown with small trees. All right, the tax assessed value, according to the tax collector, was $91,000. Now, don't get confused. He bought it for $9,100, but now the tax assessed value is $91,000. Quite a difference. All right, now using techniques that he learned in our training, he checked the neighborhood and found other properties that even had higher comparable values, all the way up to $150,000. Well, let's tell you the full story and do it quickly. He sold the property to a handyman type that wanted to start fixing it up right away, gave him a $5,000 payment as a down payment, and he sold it on a contract of sale that allowed him to collect payments until his property was fully paid for. So he only put $5,000 down. However, he's going to get payments until it's paid for. So ask yourself, would you like to do one deal like that? How many would you like to do this year, as a matter of fact? So you're getting the idea. All right, now this is only a teeny tiny example and a kind of a glimpse of what can happen in the tax defaulted business. Now, there's many other examples like that that I'll show you in future episodes. All right, now this is not theory. It's not forecasting. This is a process. It's what you need, what you should be doing right now if you want to get high income that you deserve. This system works because it's not only tested and perfected in the trenches with real people doing it, but these deals were made when there was big money on the line. In other words, this is the real deal. You see those little white circles? That's how many auctions are taking place within that state in the next 90 days. This calendar updates every single day. I'm here today to show you how to make money. To do that, I'm going to show you briefly that there are thousands of tax defaulted real estate properties across the 3,000 plus counties in the United States. This is quite interesting. You're looking at the Ted Thomas Magic Interactive Map and Auction Calendar. It changes every day. Now, I created the calendar and the map so I would know how many auctions are taking place every day in the United States. Now I can show the little guy how to make money. Most importantly, I created this system so I could have an auction list for each auction 24/7. In the small population counties, there'll be dozens of these properties, sometimes even hundreds. In the large population counties, there'll be hundreds and even thousands. I've attended auctions where there's more than 2,000 properties for sale. Now, if you're going to buy at a tax defaulted auction, 2 mistakes to avoid. Number one, make sure that you have boots on the ground and you've seen the property. You need to observe it. You might even want to touch it physically, but you need to see the condition of that property. Now, there could have been a fire the day before. There could have been a hurricane. There could have been a windstorm. There could have been, well, it could have been located next to a chicken farm or a pig farm. What would you do then? Well, you wouldn't want that property. So you always want to see the property. Now, when you're looking at the property and you're observing the condition, you also want to take a good close look at the neighborhood because you want to figure out the selling price. The successful investors know the selling price before they buy at the auction. I'm Ted Thomas. I'll see you in the next video. Don't forget, request your free auction list right below me.